Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness in the highest levels of love light. I'm obviously doing something a little different today with my whiteboard behind me. I'm going to call it my sea glass board. My friend Kat inspired me to get this whiteboard, although unfortunately I don't think you can see it as well as my old school whiteboard, but it is what it is. So I wanted to go into this in as brief amount of time as possible and talk a little bit about the purple pill and a little bit about truth and a little bit about our expansiveness and awakening and the levels of awakening, which I'm going to call bubbles of reality. So, and that can be so many categories, but today is just to keep a simple style, hopefully, in order to kind of explain and share from my perspective and from my perspective of my highest aspect. And also the reason I'm bringing this forward in this video is if I see a common theme going on in the collective, which once I start talking about this, it's a common theme going on in the collective that we all see. But also I've noticed in, let's say, the last 10 light workers that I've connected with or that I've been working with in session, it's a very common theme that's coming up for all of us. And so I always like to share those particular things with the collective, because oftentimes I connect with light workers, and I talked about this in my last video a little bit, who feel alone in their journey or feel like they're the only ones that are awake to what's going on. And so I want to just back up and just say, from a very basic linear perspective, or maybe not linear, my concept of being awake, because that's a very coined term. We've got the coined terms of woke, awakening, red pill, truther, and all of that. Then what happens is when a word becomes a commonly used word, oftentimes we begin to associate common misconceptions with that word, or it becomes a certain way of thinking associated with that word that actually pulls us away from the truth of the word. So for a very simplified version, just in case you haven't seen these videos before, from my perspective, being awake is just being conscious in my everyday moment of my ability to control my feelings. And let me rephrase that, because even that, the word control, is also, we could say, has been usurped in certain ways. It's not about controlling my environment, and it isn't about controlling other people's realities. It's about my ability to respond to my surroundings, which is from a controlled space of neutrality. Now, that would be a higher version of really being conscious and awake. However, that doesn't mean that I'm always able to stay in that space. I'm always able to, but it doesn't mean as a human being that in every moment and every second I am in a completely I am space of neutrality. And that's part of the human experience. And that's what a lot of starseeds and light workers are finding challenging right now, is staying in that neutrality. And that will be another video entirely. But what today we're going to talk about is a little bit of why that is. And so being conscious, being awake, is not necessarily the same as being woke. There are variations and versions of being woke, and that's what we're going to talk about. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about truth, and I want to back up and share that a lot of the words that I'm using in a linear fashion. I'm speaking about all of this as neutral as I can from a place of neutrality. I was going to say non-judgment, but once we start talking, most of us are experiencing some form of judgment. We're being triggered by some of the things that are going on around us. And ultimately, I see that as a journey. It's a process. Awakening and being woke doesn't necessarily mean that that's it. We wake up and we see everything for what it is, because this is a human experience that we have chosen to utilize time, which is a whole other video for, in order to experience the process of awakening. And that's only one version of a truth, of a reality. That's just a little tidbit based on the video that I'm presenting today. So as we we're waking up moment to moment to moment. For example, I might be in a place of, I might be triggered by something. I'm still awake, I'm conscious that I'm being triggered by it, and then I'm therefore choosing how I respond to that particular trigger. I can choose to integrate it, process it, move through it, and utilize it as an ability to have an expansive moment to moment to moment. And again, this is a very basic way of my description of what awakening is. So if I wake up to a certain truth, that doesn't mean that I'm awakened. And also, I say this from a place of non-judgment because I'm constantly waking up to new truths, to new truths, to new truths. So from my perspective, is there the ultimate? Absolutely. But in this journey that I've chosen on earth with my brothers and sisters, I am always awakening to new things, to new understandings of old things. And that's kind of where we're going to start today. I might do this as a several part video. So let's start with awakening. We've all heard the term woke. It's kind of a catchphrase right now. Many of us have heard the term red pill. I'm going to use all of this interchangeably because, again, I want to get away from a definitive definition of what any of this is. From my perspective, it's about expanding, 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 and not getting stuck in one bubble. And one of the things I talked about in my previous videos, when we've been red-pilled, I talked about it before. If you haven't seen The Matrix, that's what I'm referring to. Neo doesn't just wake up and know everything. He has a teacher that guides him through the process of awakening. So being red-pilled and being woke doesn't mean that we know everything. And I think that's a common misconception in any human, I'm hearing all these words, but we'll say in the existence of humanity. We are all waking up, and from my perspective, I'm constantly being red-pilled. And I was once the blue pill. And by the way, this is nothing political, this is just, again, all from a place of openness. So try not to feel triggered even by those colors. If that's something that happens, it's good to recognize. So let me rephrase that. I don't even want to use the words try not to be triggered. If we are, we are. We recognize that that is triggering something within us, and I'm thinking about what I'm connecting to red and blue, which we're going to get to in a moment. So, I mean, it's that deep and that crazy how deeply we can be triggered by certain words. But from my perspective, I've been the red and I've been the blue, and now I'm the purple. And I'm seeing things from a much more neutral perspective. And the combination of all of those things, which brings me into a higher space of awakening, we'll say, in my journey. So let's just start with the basics. When we grow up, if you can see that bubble, this heart is our main bubble. And as we're growing up, we're told certain things. We go to church perhaps, and this is all one little example. We go to church, our parents tell us, we have a relationship with our parents and our family, our siblings. We go to school, we're taught certain things by certain teachers who have an impact on our lives. We watch movies, which has a huge impact on our social decisions. I put that over here, movies, our ideas, our concepts, our clothing, what's important to us, what isn't important to us, what we value. Right? And this then builds, picture each of those bubbles, religion, family, political, social relationships, as a bubble. We go through high school, maybe we get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and that creates a belief bubble around our reality and who we are. And then before we know it, or as we come to know ourselves, or as we think we come to know ourselves, we become a person. I become Carrie, who likes this color, who likes these foods, who doesn't like these foods, who has friends that I met through this particular school and this particular neighborhood and this particular church that I went to. And I have had relationships based on those particular bubbles that I have existed within. That has then brought me into this now moment through certain jobs. I didn't write that down, but that could be social as well. Through certain workplace interactions and through certain, let's say, vocational schools. All of this has added to my bubble of reality. And as I walk through life, I have the Carrie bubble. That all of those tiny little bubbles exist within my reality structure, which we could call a version of the matrix, if you will, or the matrix that I have created, which looks like all kinds of bubbles. It's more fun that way, unless you're a mathematical person and you really dig the binary codes. But we're just going to call it bubbles for today. And so what happens is, let's say I'm going to go political for a moment, from a very neutral place. I believe, because of all of this, and I vote for a particular individual, and we're going to call them Person A. Person A also, let's say, connects with all of the bubbles of realities because they represent a particular political party. That particular political party represents all of my bubbles in my reality that I then associate with, that I connect with, or we could say that I resonate with. And as I resonate with that particular vibrational frequency, I then identify, right? And this is all about identity. I identify with that particular political leader as a match to my value systems, or the closest match to what it is I value in my reality bubble structure, aka matrix. And I just want to take a step back and recognize that every individual living on Earth has their own reality bubble matrix structure around them as well. And while somebody else may agree with my political A person, that does not mean they necessarily agree at all with my religious, social, and economic views, because one person may have grown up in this particular bubble with these particular relationships, and this other person grew up in this particular bubble with a different series of relationships, yet somehow they connect and match ideas, ideologies, views, and resonance with this particular social or political leader. Now, we go through life, and let's say that is our truth. And this is, again, a really basic conceptualization, as linear as I can get it. That person is truth to us. They hold what we value. And so within these bubbles, we fill them up with value, which adds, let's say, density. Sometimes we fill them up with notions and judgments and all kinds of things around those particular things that then attach us to, keep us attached to those particular people, places, and things. I also want to share that if you look at this from a bigger perspective, it looks like a map. It is a map. It's a mapping system that creates our reality, our bubble map, we'll call it. And I'll get to that maybe in another video. So now back to this person A. We now associate, and we could also say a particular celebrity, for example. We'll kind of tie those together, because celebrities and singers have a huge influence on our reality, our belief system, what we find entertaining and what brings us joy from a physical. Obviously, I'm not talking about earth and nature and all of that, but you watch a video, or a movie, and it brings up certain emotions that make us feel a certain way about that particular actor or singer, for example. So now we have this political person A, and let's say this political person A, we have grown up around. Maybe our parents supported this particular party, for example, or just take it into whatever you want to call it, an actor or actress. And you grew up watching the rallies and the movies and everything associated with this particular politician or celebrity. Now you've taken and you thought, and that was your truth, right? That was our truth at that particular stage of our life, based on our map and what we had experienced and seen, based on our perception, based on where we were at in our reality. Now something has happened. We've been red-pilled. We've, whatever you want to call it, woke to a certain extent or a certain truth. This was our truth, though. And we believed this particular person was it. They had this mojo, or whatever you want to call it. And this particular actor we wanted to build our lives like that person. They were a philanthropist, and they'd done all these wonderful things for humanity. And then all of a sudden, something comes out, and it's a truth. And we find out that that particular celebrity or political party or society, whatever we want to call it, is not who and what we thought. And in fact, they are now associated with the energies and vibrations that we do not value, that we find the opposite of our value system, or make us question our value system. And we've now seen through whatever truth, whatever version of this pill we want to call it. And we now see them from a completely different perspective, because that experience of hearing that video, seeing that reality, let's say, for example, this particular person is very psychologically troubled, or let's say they have a perversion that is not in alignment with our value system at all. And it's quite apparent when you see it in certain videos or certain things that they've written on Twitter or whatever these social medias. And it makes you go, how could I have valued this person so much? How could I not have seen that? And many humans, light worker is even a label. As a being living on the planet Earth, going through our experiences, we all of a sudden see things and go, oh, I did not know that that was real. Now, 6 months ago, or let's say 2 years ago, the reality that we lived in and the truth that we valued and put our time and attention in and believed in was different. Now it's completely shifted. And we're seeing things from a completely different angle. We'll call it a wide angle. Before we were on a narrow angle. And now we've opened and expanded and gone, what is this new information? And this brings up a lot of things. It can trigger many different feelings. And I'm going to talk about that maybe in a different video. Now what happens is, well, I'll talk about it briefly. We feel things such as, I see things from this whole perspective. This person that I honored and believed in is not who I thought they were. Therefore, who am I? Because they represented to me my value system. They represented to me, and that's just one little bubble. So now that becomes a bubble. And now what a lot of people do is that bubble is popped, for example, around this particular politician or actor, an actress, singer, and that bubble is popped, and all these memories that we had associated with them are well, I can't even think of my childhood the same way anymore. I can't just sit down and watch a movie and go back to that, because now all I see is them and this video that I saw of them acting highly inappropriately, or these words that they wrote that are not right in a moral and ethical value bubble. And it gives us a shake-up. It changes our whole reality. And that is one example of a layer of woke, a layer of awakening. For some people, it's just questioning those things, and people are labeling that as woke, right? But there's layers. So now we see this politician and we go, well, they're not who I thought they were. Therefore, does that mean this other politician, actor, leader is who I thought they were? Because if I could have been wrong, and it's not that we were wrong, Let's back the truck up for a moment, right? That was our reality. That was true for us. That was our truth for many years. And now an experience has popped that bubble of truth that we were living within, and all of the energy associated with that false truth, but I would venture to say it wasn't false if we believed in it, because it became our truth and reality. We made it real. Therefore, it was true to us, because as we believed in that structure of reality, it became true to us. And some people have not had that bubble popped yet about any of this. And by the way, I'm not saying one politician or another, or one actor or singer or another, or one particular, we could say religion, right? We grew up in a particular religion, and now we find out that that religion or leader of a particular school that we have been a part of, that is part of our heritage, is not ethically right. And in fact, they've been teaching and lying to us because they've been a representative of the opposite of what they've been teaching. So fill in the blank, fill in the bubble. I'm just using politics because it's so heightened right now. You know, last year it might have been religion. And we could even say leaders who represent certain groups, and it could be sexuality, right? The feminine versus the masculine. We found out these leaders that we really liked were mistreating the opposite sex. Any of that is a bubble, a structure of our reality. So what's happening though is all of these bubbles are connected. And as each one gets popped, the information flows out. And what that gives us an opportunity to do is expand and find our neutral place. But it's difficult to do that when we've been entrenched in that belief structure for a very long time. And that's what a lot of people are experiencing. So now that becomes, once you see that, you don't go back to the blue pill, right? Again, reference to the Matrix. Now, the reason I'm talking about the red pill versus the blue pill is a lot of people have taken the red pill and they're uncovering many great truths about how our reality works, about science, about religion, about Hollywood, about politics and leaders and people that have been the opposite of the value system that we've been in. And now we went from 100% believing that to now 100% believing, right, that. So we've gone from blue to red. But ultimately, if we think about the movie The Matrix, it's beyond all that. It's recognizing and seeing the bigger picture beyond all of the truths that are coming up. Because now we're up here, we'll say, or expanded out into this truth, which encompasses all of these things from a completely different view, a completely different angle. The question becomes, are we now creating our reality based on this new platform of truth? Based on where we're at now and what we're seeing? Many people, though, and I've talked to some beautiful light workers, have now gone beyond that and have taken the purple pill. They've digested the red, because I would venture to say that we were once in the blue pill. We once chose, knowingly or unknowingly, as a consciousness, to believe in a certain truth, right? And we weren't aware of what was going on. And there are many people who are not. And that's another video also. I'm talking about the ones that have been red pilled, that are wanting to expand and make sense of this all. So now we've expanded. The question becomes, now we're building, oops, my marker. Now we're building a new reality. So now our reality is here, it's here, it's here, and we're disconnecting from the old mainframe, right? We're canceling that out, and now that's over, we'll say here, hanging out, mainframe. Our main frame of truth, our main mapping starting location. We're disconnecting from that, and now we're recreating relationships, our political views, our religious views, and we're so entrenched in that sometimes, gone so far down the rabbit hole, that all it's doing is creating another bubble. And we give our belief and we give our value to that new bubble of reality because it makes us feel more solid. It makes us feel stable. It makes us think, okay, I can believe in that person. Or now that I've seen that and I've woken up, I'm now going to go this direction. But what I really want to invite everybody to see is that this is a continuous happening. Because now, let's say in 5 years, we have another awakening and new truths come to light. And that person, celebrity, political leader, philanthropist, maybe didn't follow code, the golden code, the moral code of do no harm, the golden rule. And that truth then comes out. And we're then disappointed again. The question becomes, let me go back. What are we placing our values in? And are we always placing our values outside of us? Because ultimately these bubbles that create our reality, if we're continuously pouring our energy, our heart, our time, our attention, our awareness, agreeing, disagreeing, it creates a new map. The question is then, are we following that new map, or are we leading from the heart so that we can then recognize that it isn't about the blue and it isn't about the red. Those are just parts and pieces of the whole, of the puzzle, of our reality. Because even beyond that, and beyond that, and beyond that, and beyond that is awakening. So, while it is key and important for us to take the red pill if we choose to, we might have a friend or a neighbor who knows nothing about it, yet they're living from the heart. They don't vote. They don't go to church. They volunteer at a homeless shelter. They care for their grandchildren. They have a garden, and they're living their life as a divine, neutral being. Does that mean they need to take a red pill? Or does that possibly mean that they've already gotten to the purple level? And I want to share this because I've gone through these stages and I see it and I'm recognizing it within myself. I still have triggers from all of the things that are being exposed and all of the truths. But I recognize that at one point, let's say 5 years ago even, my truth and what I believed in is not the same with my truth now. And my truth and what I believe in now is not the same as it was even 3 weeks ago. Because I've had mystical experiences between now and 3 weeks ago that have shifted my direction, that have shifted my perspective. And it gives us the ability to see that these definitive definitions of color, for example, are just another version of distraction and separation. If that's what we're completely diverting all of our energy to. So again, what is the definition of distraction? Separation. To distract is to pull apart. And we've got this huge gap of woke and non-woke. And many people are not seeing that there are layers of awakening. One person might be woke to the fact that this, let's say, this particular religion that they grew up in is not all love and light, and that there's a lot of corruption. But they may have no idea about the corruption beyond that in the political bubble. They haven't taken the red pill about that yet. And it might be that the movies, they might be in love with a particular Hollywood star who we have taken the red pill about, and we've read some of the things that they've written and seen it and felt it and recognized that it's not love and light and it's not someone who we choose to support, yet they aren't there yet. They may never see that. And so rather than us pulling things apart, we are being invited to get back to neutrality. It's to be invited to recognize that everybody is on their own journey. While it is important to be able to share the truth with people, I've shared it. I've told people to go check out this particular website or a particular page or a particular person that I listen to on Instagram who is a truther. But I also recognize that their version of the truth could shift in light of new information that might come out in 2 months, that then changes everybody's information. And then there's the layers of red pill. I haven't even gotten into our let's say extraterrestrial brothers and sisters, because we have those that are awakened to all of this. But then as soon as you say, well, you know, our DNA holds all of the ancestral codes from certain lineages, and that just shuts them down, right? The mainframe fries. And they're like, cannot handle, right? Does not compute, because that pushed them over the edge. And so everybody has the edge. And some people cannot see past it yet, or may not ever see past it. But again, these are bubbles of reality that many people have spent years creating, or buying into, or valuing. And now everything, all of this has shifted for a huge percentage of the population. And I wanted to share this also because, and if I run out of time, I'll do a video too. There's a lot of light workers and starseeds who are aware of all this. They're aware of all of it. And recently, especially, I've had light workers reach out to me and say, I'm fried, or I see that they're fried. My higher self is like, whoa, they need to unplug. Others need to plug in more because that's what's inspiring them. Others I work with need to just garden. And others I've seen need to, everybody has a different place that they can create in their own bubble of reality that they can create from. And so what happens is we've been oftentimes fried because we're plugging into everybody else's bubble of reality. And again, that's another video. So we've seen all this, and all of these bubbles have been popped. So now let's say the bubble on political person A was popped, which incorporates their religion, their political views, and their party. Bubble on relationships was popped because it's a friend who really let you down, or a spouse or partner who lied to you and you know, did some things that were not morally or ethically right. Let's say that the social, you know, you've taken the red pill and you've switched your